At the end of the kennel, where the light barely shone, a German shepherd sat motionless in the darkness. His name was Rocco. His dark eyes did not scream for help, nor did they resent him, only a sense of exhaustion. The scars that crisscrossed his face and body told no end of the painful stories he had been through. On the kennel door was a cold sign, "Danger, do not approach." No one dared to approach. Families passing by hurried their pace, children were dragged away with fearful eyes. As for Rocco, he just sat there watching like someone who was used to indifference and alienation. Then, Lucas walked in. With no expectations, no search for a wagging tail, he simply walked along the row of cages like a wanderer in search of the unknown. But as soon as his eyes met Rocco's, time seemed to stand still. It wasn't love at first sight. It was recognition. Something deep inside him resonated with the loneliness and hurt that resided in the creature before him. A rescue worker quickly spoke up. "You shouldn't go near that one. She's dangerous and doesn't trust anyone." But Lucas didn't stop. He sat down, keeping a safe distance, and said softly, "I know what it's like to be judged by your scars." Rocco didn't react violently, but his ears twitched. A small gesture, but in that moment, he wasn't the broken dog everyone thought he was. He was a weary soul, hearing a non-judgmental voice for the first time. And to Lucas, that look was a whisper. "I haven't given up. There just hasn't been enough patience." Immediately after that fateful moment, Lucas was led into the main office of the shelter. There, the manager, a middle-aged woman named Deborah, sat behind a desk with a thick file. She opened the file quietly, pushed it toward Lucas, and sighed. "Rocco is not like the others. You need to know everything." Inside were pages of distressing documents, pictures of chewed-off leashes, injury reports, even a petition for destruction. An old photo appeared, a gaunt dog eyes dead, tied to a rusty fence. "Rocco was badly trained," Deborah said quietly. "Shocked, starved, locked in a dark basement for weeks at a time. When he growled, they called him fierce. No one ever asked him why." Lucas flipped through the pages, his eyes never leaving the words "too dangerous," "impossible to recover." But instead of being scared or backing down, he simply said, "You're right. It's not evil. It's just learning how to survive in hell." Deborah paused for a moment, then nodded. "We considered putting him to sleep permanently, but no one here can do that." There was something in his eyes, like he was waiting for someone. Lucas didn't hesitate. He signed the adoption papers. "I won't heal him with expectations. I'll let him remember that he loved." When Rocco was let out, the thick muzzle was tight over his hard teeth, his body as hard as steel. But Lucas was not afraid. He knelt down and whispered, "If you still know what to believe in, come with me." Rocco looked at him for a long moment, then slowly followed. Not out of trust, but out of hope that had just opened the last door. That evening, Lucas and Rocco arrived at the small house on the edge of town. As soon as the door opened, Lucas carefully removed the muzzle from Rocco's head. There was no growl, no protest. Just a look of disbelief, as if the dog was waiting for something bad to happen. "You can leave if you want," Lucas said softly, "but if you stay, this is your home." Rocco entered, his feet slowly exploring every corner of the room. No orders, no leash. Just silence and warm light reflecting off the wooden floor. The first night passed tensely. Rocco did not sleep. He paced restlessly, his claws clicking like a ticking clock. Every little noise, the refrigerator turning on the wind, blowing through the window, made him jump, ready to spring into defense. In the middle of the night, something unexpected happened. Rocco lunged at the wall, baring his teeth and growling. Lucas ran over to find the mirror knocked over and smashed on the floor. The dog had attacked his own reflection. Not out of aggression, but out of fear. Rocco cowered in the corner, whimpering in terror. But Lucas didn't yell. He didn't punish him. He just sat down, keeping his distance, and whispered, "No one's going to hurt you anymore. It was you, but you're not there anymore." Rocco looked at him, not coming closer, not turning away. Just a silent look, as if considering, is it true? The next morning, Rocco lay in the corner, but this time not out of vigilance. He lay exhausted, and for the first time in years, at peace. Lucas saw it. He opened the file again, not to judge, but to better understand the pain this dog had been through. He knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, But now, at least the first door was open, and Rocco walked in on his own scarred feet. After a few nights together, Lucas decided to open the file the rescue center had given him, not to judge, but to understand. He sat by the fireplace, Rocco lying nearby, eyes half closed, but ears still listening to every movement around him. The firelight flickered on the old pages, and each line in the file tore at Lucas's heart. There were veterinary reports documenting Rocco's emaciated state when he was rescued: low weight, patchy hair loss, old wounds that had not healed. One vet note read, "The animal shows signs of prolonged starvation and likely has been kept in the dark for several days." Lucas felt his throat tighten. The cold words described the hell Rocco had lived through. He turned to the last page. An old photograph faded and scratched at the edges. It was Rocco, a child chained to a rusty fence, his eyes staring into the camera, not afraid, but blank. Beside it was a note from the rescuer. "Found neglected, suspected of corporal punishment. High alert. Do not approach." Lucas placed his hand on the photo, his eyes softening. "It's not your fault," he said softly as if to Rocco, though he knew the dog could only understand through emotion. "You just learned to survive in a world that hurt you." Rocco looked up at him. Then, his eyes still cautious but no longer cold. Something had softened, a small crack in the shell of fear and resentment. Lucas realized Rocco was not evil. He was a creature who had been betrayed too many times. The bites, the suspicious looks, the wariness, all were just armor to survive in a world where kindness had long been absent. And for the first time, he saw it clearly. The storm that night not only shook the roof, but also stirred up nightmares in Rocco's mind. When the first lightning bolt tore across the sky and the thunder rumbled through the glass, the dog was startled. Without waiting a second, Rocco rushed into the corner of the room, his body curled up, his tail clamped between his legs, his whole body shaking so much that it made a rattling sound on the wooden floor. His eyes were no longer alert as usual, but panicked, lost, filled with an indescribable terror. Lucas stood in the middle of the room, his heart in his throat. He understood. This wasn't just thunder, it was memory. The beatings, the days locked in the dark, could have always been accompanied by a sound like this. He didn't step forward, didn't call out. Instead, he sat down, his back against the wall a few feet away from Rocco. He let his voice grow low, steady and warm. "No one will hurt you here anymore," he said. "You don't have to fight anymore. You're safe." Rocco didn't respond right away, but after several long minutes, while the sky continued to roar outside, the dog slowly inched forward. He didn't lie down on Lucas's lap, but he moved close enough that his nose touched his knee. A gentle touch. Not exactly trust, but a sign that he was trying. Lucas didn't move. No patting, no encouragement. He just let Rocco choose the distance he felt safe. Every second of silence carried the weight of a step toward recovery. When Rocco lay down beside him, not turning away but lying with his head on the floor, Lucas knew tonight was a turning point. And the next morning, when the sunlight filtered through the curtains, Rocco was still there, curled up beside her. No more growling, no more panicking. Just a weary soul, finally able to breathe in peace. The afternoons gradually became more peaceful for Lucas and Rocco. Their steps on the deserted street were no longer filled with tense anticipation, but instead with the steady rhythm of silent understanding. Rocco no longer flinched at the slightest noise, no longer growled at the stick leaning against the wall or the shadow in the distance. Though his eyes still held the same pain, there was now a light in them, a light of hope. Lucas never imposed anything on Rocco. He didn't force him to learn commands or act like a normal dog. He just patiently showed up, speaking softly, letting Rocco learn for himself that not all humans hurt him, and that trust was eventually reciprocated. One cool afternoon in early April, Lucas decided to take Rocco for a longer walk than usual along a winding road leading to an old residential area. They had just reached the end of the street when a shrill scream tore through the quiet air. A middle-aged woman rushed out from the alley, panicked. "Someone is breaking into my house! Help!" Just then, a hooded figure burst out of the fence, a sharp object in hand, and ran straight toward them. Lucas only had time to take a step back before he saw Rocco spring to his feet, his muscular body charging forward like a human shield. No orders needed, no training needed, just the reflexes of a creature that had chosen to trust humans once more. Rocco roared, his eyes blazing, his white teeth bared threateningly. The thief stopped, terrified when faced with the aura of a self-sacrificing protector. He took a few steps back, stumbled, and then ran away in panic. The woman standing behind Lucas collapsed her hands, shaking, tears welling up in her eyes. If it weren't for that dog. Minutes later, police arrived on the scene and caught the thief hiding nearby. Neighbors rushed out to see what had happened, and then they saw Rocco the dog, once considered too dangerous to adopt, standing next to his owner, alert but calm, as if he had always been there for this. That evening, when the two friends returned home, Lucas sat on the steps, Rocco lying next to him. There was no TV, no music, just a meaningful silence. Lucas gently placed his hand on Rocco's head and whispered, "You don't have to be a hero, but today, you're mine." Rocco snuggled her head into his chest, sighing softly for the first time with complete peace. News of Rocco spread like wildfire. Overnight, local social media sites were flooded with photos of the dog standing next to Lucas. His calm expression, his piercing eyes, and the headline, "Once deemed dangerous dog, saves woman from armed thief." People who had once avoided them on the streets now stopped. Their cars rolled down their windows, smiled, and waved. Children once wary of Rocco eagerly asked their parents, "Can I pet that mighty dog?" The animal shelter where Rocco had lived was also shocked. The shelter director admitted in an interview, "We considered giving Rocco away many times. But Lucas showed us what we didn't dare believe, that patience and love can heal even the deepest wounds." These words quickly went viral, becoming a touching reminder for the animal-loving community. Not stopping there, Lucas and Rocco were invited to a high school to share their stories. In a packed auditorium, Rocco sat at Lucas's feet, quiet, and composed a symbol of recovery. Lucas recounted his journey from a crazy decision to a relationship built on trust and time. His eyes drooped as he recalled the early days. But when he looked at Rocco, who was listening beside him, he smiled. "When I brought Rocco home, people told me I was bringing danger into the house," Lucas said, his voice low. "But I didn't see a monster. I saw a wounded soul waiting for someone to listen." Since that day, the shelter has received a flood of adoption applications for dogs deemed difficult or unrehabilitable. They call it the Rocco effect. That night, as Lucas lay on the sofa and Rocco curled up at his feet, the rain pattering outside, neither of them needed to say anything more. Because they both understood no one is born bad, they just haven't been given the chance to be good. And for Rocco, that chance has turned him into something unexpected. As autumn came, bringing with it a cool breeze and the first leaves falling on the porch, Lucas sat quietly on the steps, a hot cup of coffee in hand. Beside him, Rocco rested his head on his feet, eyes half-closed, ears drooping in peace. No longer the dog who was always ready to fight, Rocco was now a symbol of faith, forgiveness, and healing. Lucas glanced toward the front yard, where a neighbor's kid was playing with a rubber ball. Every now and then, Rocco would lift his head and wag his tail, as if to say, "I'm watching, don't worry." The sense of security the dog brought to the house was now as natural as breathing. Their story is more than just a rescue or a miraculous rebirth. It has become a quiet inspiration that has spread throughout the town. Schools have invited Lucas to speak about patience. Families who were once wary of big dogs are now more open to kids with a past. A local veterinarian even hung Rocco's picture in his office with the caption, "No soul is beyond healing." For Lucas, every day with Rocco is a reminder that the most broken things are often the most precious if we have the courage to trust again. When asked how he tamed an animal that the world had turned its back on, he simply smiled and replied, "I didn't tame Rocco. I just waited patiently for him to believe he was worthy of love." And so, the story ends not with a warning bark, but with a deep breath in the quiet afternoon, where a dog once called too dangerous to save now rests next to the friend who chose to love him despite his past. Looking back, Lucas can't believe that the dog who growled and scarred on his first day is the same creature sleeping peacefully at his feet now. Rocco, once called too dangerous to adopt, is now the living embodiment of healing, not through rigid commands, but through quiet love and unconditional patience. Lucas thought he was saving a lost animal, but over time he realized the opposite. It was Rocco who taught him a profound lesson: that pain does not break a soul, it only makes it shrink, defend itself. Wait for someone gentle enough to touch it without breaking it further. Rocco had never been a ferocious man. The bites, the growls, the suspicious looks were just remnants of the hurt, something that all humans carry with them, even if they don't admit it. Lucas understood that if he could reach a forgotten, seemingly beyond saving creature, there would always be hope, not just for the wounded animal, but for those who carry silent pain. The day Rocco was honored at the community fair, standing beside Lucas before an emotional crowd, no one remembered his extensive record of crimes. All they saw was his loyal eyes, his calm, his courage, a symbol of recovery, a testament to the fact that no one is too broken to be loved. In the fading twilight, Lucas gently stroked Rocco's thick fur and whispered, "We can all be saved, if only someone doesn't give up." And for Rocco, he wasn't just saved, he was brought back to life with a heart more whole than ever.